House Bill 249, an act relating to revenue. Representative Petrie.
Gentleman from McCracken.
I yield to the gentleman from Todd 16 for explanation of the bill and motion thereon.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Todd for explanation of bill and a motion thereon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will you ask the clerk to report House Committee Substitute 1?
Clerk, please report.
House Committee Substitute 1 to House Bill 249.
Gentleman from Todd.
Mr. Speaker, I move for adoption.
Motion is for the adoption of House Committee Substitute 1. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor signify by voting aye. Those opposed, nay. House Committee Substitute 1 is adopted. Gentleman from Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 249, as amended by House Committee Substitute 1, does essentially the following. Section 1 clarifies on behalf of the Department of Revenue that audit work papers can be emailed to taxpayers. It's a clarification measure. Section 2, property valuation administrators, how they charge fees back with the counties. It is a technical correction to the bracket system. Section 3 clarifies open vaping system taxations to make sure that solutions are taxed, but hardware is not taxed to the best way possible. Section 4, cigarette tax bonds, it actually changes the requirements on those bonds so that insurers will in fact issue the bonds. Right now that seems to be impossible. Section 5 and 6, motor vehicle usage tax, you drive it. This is a clarification from the Department of Revenue, also making sure that we know that there are two alternate ways of paying the tax rather than having to pay two taxes. Section 7 and 9, sales and use tax, make sure that we are in conformity with the streamlined sales and use tax agreement, of which 24 other states are members, and we would be at risk of losing substantial money if we do not become in compliance. Sections 10 and 11, Department of Revenue initiative, terminating the requirement of a certain return, which is a duplicate return, unnecessary. Sections 12 and 13 will modify tourism development incentives to apply to additional programs. Section 14, petroleum storage tank program, is technical correction for a year that was misidentified in a prior version. Sections 15 and 16 deal with effective dates. Mr. Speaker, if you'd ask the clerk to report House Floor Amendment 2.
Clerk, please report.
House Floor Amendment 2 to House Bill 249.
Gentleman from Todd.
Thank you. House Floor Amendment 2 Department of Revenue asked for some changes as well as others, and Cabinet for Economic Development is in support of this. Department of Revenue is in support of it. Major recycling projects is simply a technical correction to allow for different filing dates and apply for those credits. I would move for adoption of House Floor Amendment 2.
Motion is for the adoption of House Floor Amendment 2. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor signify by voting aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. House Floor Amendment 2 is adopted. Gentleman from Todd.
Mr. Speaker, we ask the clerk to report House Floor Amendment 4.
Clerk, please report.
House Floor Amendment 4 to House Bill 249.
Gentleman from Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Floor Amendment 4 essentially allows us to deal with an oddity in the law on the border state with Tennessee that allows authority to the Cabinet for Economic Development to waive certain requirements about residence employment numbers on incentive packages. I would move for House Floor Amendment 4 adoption.
Motion is for the adoption of House Floor Amendment 4. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor signify by voting aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. House Floor Amendment 4 is adopted. Gentleman from Todd.
Mr. Speaker, may I yield to the gentleman from LaRue 24 for a friendly floor amendment?
Chair recognizes the gentleman from LaRue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will you please have the clerk report House Floor Amendment 5?
Clerk, please report.
House Floor Amendment 5 to House Bill 249.
Gentleman from LaRue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This allows tax jurisdictions without fear of violating confidentiality issues to share information with other taxing jurisdictions. I move for adoption of House Floor Amendment 5 to House Bill 249 as amended.
Motion is for the adoption of House Floor Amendment 5. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor signify by voting aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. House Floor Amendment 5 is adopted. Gentleman from Todd.
Mr. Speaker, I move for passage of House Bill 249 as amended by House Committee Substitute 1 and as amended by House Floor Amendment 2, 4, and 5.